Let's start by taking the bass line out. To go. Shit. Oh my god. R.I.P. Mark 45 King. Um, Absolutely classic record, classic beat. You already know what it is. Um, Before I get into Mark 45 King a little bit, I just want to say that thanks for rocking with me. I've been gone for, well, I guess a little less than a week or whatever, but in YouTube land, that's a millennium. So I've been out here traveling. I actually took a quick trip to Philly to see some family. So I'd never been to Philly before, so I was in Philly like a day, and then I was in the Bronx for like a couple of days. So, I used to live in New York, so I'm familiar with the Bronx. But actually, I will say this though. I don't know as much about the Bronx as I do Brooklyn because when I was living in New York, I was living in Brooklyn. So the Bronx was interesting to spend, I would say, some days in the Bronx because I don't think I've ever really done that, at least not like in a long time. So, I got family that live pretty close to Soundview. Anyway, like, so that area is interesting, you know what I mean? Obviously, a lot of Hispanics, and once you go to the Bronx, it's like a zoo, you know what I mean? No disrespect to anybody from the Bronx, respect to all my New York peoples. But it's definitely an interesting experience, especially when you're driving. Them Bronx streets are no joke. I don't know. For me, I just find it. Their streets are a little weird, compared even maybe a little bit more weird than Brooklyn. Brooklyn, I feel, is a little bit more straightforward, but again, that could just be the outsider in me talking. So my point is, I was gone, but I got a lot of family stateside, so I'm kind of always in the U.S. All things considered, and that's why I always think it's interesting when I see the comments. People are like, "Yo, you don't know what you're talking about, Canadian." Alright, that's cool. It's all good. So let's talk about Mark the 4-5 King. I should have been done this video. So RIP to the God. Uh, what can I say about this beat that hasn't been said already? This is classic, man. Just a fantastic record. I have to say, when it came out, I wasn't huge on it, but it was a huge record. I was cool, but can I get a? That was my shit. That was the joint that I was on in terms of J, right? That I loved, and that's, to me, I've always said that Volume 2 J is when J became J. So I was so focused on that, I wasn't really. And then what, nigga, who? I think that was on Volume 2 as well. Yeah. So this, I was cool on it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. It took me, I think, some years, and then I was like, oh, this song is actually really ill, right? But very different, very left field. Absolutely. So Mark the 4-5 King was kind of, from what I understand, Latifah's producer. So he's been around in the game quite a bit. You know, One thing I will say about someone like a Mark the 4-5 King, you don't see him on lists, on GOAT lists and all that kind of stuff. And I have to backtrack here and also say that as much as I should be doing these producer profiles, talking about the GOATs, I should also keep in mind that there's a lot of people that have contributed to hip hop in terms of producing that may not make the GOAT list, but have made GOAT level beats and have obviously made stuff that just impacted the culture. And we do a disservice when we just focus on the Pete Rocks and the Q-Tips and DJ Premiers because, yes, of course, they're amazing and it doesn't take anything away from them. But guys like Mark the 4-5 King are pivotal to this rap shit, and you should know who they are if you're serious about hip hop. You know what I mean? So, I would say obviously the first song I ever heard by him, that was produced by him, I would say was probably the Hard Knock Life beat, even though I didn't know that he did it. So I don't know a ton about his catalog, but I kind of listened to a couple, some notable records that he did. So this one, Queen Latifah, Ladies First, pivotal record for sure in hip hop, did this beat. The other beat that he did that I thought was kind of fly was X Clan, Heed the Word of the Brother. And, what I find really interesting about these five beats I'm about to play that are Mark the 4-5 King sort of most known beats is that they're all very different. And that's a talented cat. I mean, that he was able to kind of go into these different zones, I would say. Um, and it's interesting because on one hand, it's great that he's that versatile and could make heat in sort of different styles. But I also think that this is kind of where being a rap producer can, of that style variation, can be a disservice to you because then you're not really known for a particular thing. Especially since, from what I understand, given Jay's interview, Jay did say that Mark the 4-5 King kind of come out with this crazy beat and then disappear for a while, right? And again, that's kind of why someone like Mark the 4-5 King, as much as, again, love and respect to the brother, but you don't necessarily put him on the GOAT list next to a Premier because the catalog isn't as big enough and maybe not as active for whatever reason. Again, not to take away anything from the brother. Anyway, this beat's dope. The other beat that I absolutely loved back then was the 900 number. This I heard in real time via DJ Cool. Let Me Clear My Throat. I used to love that record. I still do. It's fire. But that was the one that, like, I heard that in real time and I was like, this is the shit. I had no idea that it was really just the beat from the 900 number. But yeah, this was a pretty decent record. I don't know how big it was Billboard wise, but I certainly loved this shit. I really did. Yeah, man. Let me clear my throat. Oh, shit. That was fire. And then, lastly, where I found out the name Mark the 4-5 King was, funny enough, with Stan. No idea he had done this. I think I remember looking it up, the credits, like in the 2000s. And I was like, Mark the 4-5 King, I've seen that name before. And it was like, again, just these different styles. Again, this is a classic in a way. I don't necessarily think it's hard to say because this record was huge. Again, I witnessed this in real time. This was a huge record. It's not exactly like it's a great beat for what Eminem is doing on the song. It is definitely one of Eminem's best songs ever. It's probably the song in a way that humanized Eminem in a big way. So, Eminem owes a lot of props to Mark the 4-5 King for this shit because this made Eminem seem like relatable in a way, not so like this trolly, goofy rapper, but someone that had actually something to say. And I think this was a big reason why he got presented that way because it was a beautiful beat. It was something that made you just think, and it was very different from anything that was out at the time, right? And I remember it just the moment you heard it, you were like, huh, okay. It's not something that you're. I remember I can't remember who joked about like you gonna be in your whip bumping stand. No, it's a little too depressing for that shit. But it certainly catches your ear, and I think of the Eminem depressing, semi-alternative rock act type shit. I think this is pretty good as far as it goes. So yeah, classic, man. Mark the 4-5 King put his foot into this. So yeah, I was gonna add. I met K Cut recently. Shout out to K Cut of Main Source. So right before I took my trip to Philly and the Bronx, I was hanging out with K Cut a little bit. He was doing like a seminar. And, in my conversation with K Cut, I started to realize was like, guys like K Cut, people don't talk about K Cut, but K Cut has done a lot of phenomenal stuff. And again, like we can't really keep focusing on the Primos, the Timbalands, because again, as goats as they are, they didn't come out in a vacuum, right? Like K Cut was talking about how, again, this is a Main Source dude, so he's making the music with Large Professor, with Sir Scratch. Him and Q-Tip are trading records, right? So they're all hanging out with each other. He's hanging out with Pete Rock. They're sampling a lot of the same stuff. It's like kind of like I dig, you dig, and we share what we've dug, right? So that stimulation, that sharing of the minds is what made those guys so great. Doesn't take anything away from the Large Professors and the Q-Tips of the world, but without the K-Cuts, the Mark the 4-5 Kings and things like that, where people were sharing knowledge, those guys would not be as big as they are. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter, right? So that's why hanging out with K-Cut made me realize I was like, I gotta start doing some producer profiles of people that are also just fantastic in their own right, who, yeah, okay, maybe they only made 3 notable beats that you know of, but those 3 beats are like, whew, crazy, right? And added a lot to the game, right? Mark the 4-5 King is a perfect example of that. So, anyway, um, I'll talk more about my K cut thing when I do a video on K cut. I think that'll be one of my next ones. So, because we did have a really interesting conversation, and he was talking to me stuff about like live at the barbecue sessions and all that shit, like wild stuff. Anyway, love y'all. Thanks y'all for rocking for me, and see you soon.